Welcome back, Madge. So, Madge, we're going to ask everyone. It's only the two of us today, but
Right.
for next week, please tell us who you want on the show. Put it in the comments, put it in the chat. Who do you want on for next week? You can pick one person. Madge and I will do our best to get the person who voted the most onto the next week's show. Try and pick someone realistic.
Get me Rory shirt. What you do is get your controller, hit the start button on it, and a new challenger enters the ring. So, Rory, if you're listening, come on.
I'm going to play the Mortal Kombat theme as I'm.
Nice. Get us a challenge, Rory. But no, I'm trying to think who I'd want to have on there. There's a lot of options, to be fair. There's a lot of cool people in the space.
Finally, the other thing that we're going to do today is this. I'm going to do a giveaway, and I want you to tell me why you want this book so badly. I'll send you a signed copy, and I'll reach out to you in next week's show.
Who could pass that up? It's got pictures, guys.
Welcome everyone to the Sunday Roast. We're back from our summer break with my co-host, Big Madge. Can you introduce yourself?
I am Big Match Studios, and you know me as the co-host of this channel, but also my own channel, Big Match Studios YouTube channel, where I produce political content. And we've been on break for a little bit on the summer, but here with Alex. Alex, you've been busy, right? You get anything done recently?
I get to plug this. You segued me in. Good work.
Yeah.
I wrote this little bad boy, which I believe you've not read.
All right, man. I don't go uni anymore, so I don't need to read. I just read articles and stuff. I say Google summarize this, and it does it for me. But no, reading sucks. That's why people are listening to this.
You've gone from the best plug to the worst insult.
That's why people listen to stuff instead of read stuff. That's why this is in vocal form, not written form. But no, if you're a reader, it's probably worth reading.
Where's your mug?
It's got pictures. Oh, mine's downstairs. I haven't got any tea.
Worst co-host ever.
If you would like a mug, you can buy them. It's a really good mug. That thing's thick as hell. That's a meaty mug, honestly.
Unbreakable.
Honestly, don't hypothetically speaking. But no, it's pretty solid. I had my tea in there. It was warm for a while. Can't ask for more. It's a lot of tea. Can't ask for any more.
That's exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Or in the mug. Yeah. Much happened over the summer?
Nah. Quiet summer, no riots, no nonsense in the US, no military going into DC. No, not much really. Not ministers resigning for the most ridiculous reasons possible. Thought we left that with the Tories, but no.
None of that.
Just very quiet, silly season, nothing much to cover at all.
I know you said you were a bit hesitant to talk about it, but I'm quite tempted to be a bit cheeky here and bring up South Park. Did you watch the episodes?
I saw the picture people posted. I think I might have seen the clip of it, and I was like, yeah, they know how to annoy people, and they're doing exactly that. And so you just don't react to things. That's all. That's the secret to dealing with those guys. You don't react, but that guy's so thin-skinned where he'll react to anything.
I mean, they were showing a president's penis repeatedly throughout the episodes and referring to how small it is.
That's the thing,
which is pretty unique. I don't think that's ever happened before in history.
He is self-conscious about it because he had that whole argument with Rubio and tiny hands.
He's always calling me Little Marco. And I'll admit, the guy, he's taller than me. He's like 6'2", which is why I don't understand why his hands are the size of someone who's 5'2". Have you seen his hands? They're like this. And you know what they say about men with small hands? You can't trust them.
And I was like, is this what the debate to become, essentially president of the United States is become? And I'm like, mate, your country's been a circus for a long time. You had Trump talking about how he likes his war heroes not captured. You had John Kerry's valor being questioned by, I think, George W. Bush. This is a complete circus. They're very much. I saw a tweet about this. Like the US is in its Soviet Union phase, and it is very much true. Like you have the biggest clowns ever to run for office.
And you've got the military.
Yeah,
lining the streets of Washington, D.C., even though crime is at its lowest rate. Yeah. It was actually quite spectacular. There was a clip where Trump came out and justified why he was sending the military in. Actually, in fact, let's just go back to the South Park bit because they keep doing these amazing gaffes. they said when the first South Park episode came out, and it basically has Donald Trump having sex with Satan. Obviously, it's a rehash of an old joke. It makes you wonder where they're going to go with it. But they came out, the White House press office came out and said, "Oh, it's totally irrelevant. South Park is totally irrelevant these days. No one cares about it. It's been old for 20 years." It came out with the highest stream rating in the US that week, which is just like, wow. And then going back to the Washington thing and their foot and mouth disease, I kid you not, Donald Trump came out and spoke about how crime had gotten out of hand in Washington, D.C. And then it switches to Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, coming out and going, crime is at an all-time low across the whole of the US. What? And how safe America is in Donald Trump's hands.
New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this.
A few moments later.
Our children, and the murder rates are plummeting. We are now able to report that the murder rate is on track to be the lowest in U.S. history, in modern recorded U.S. history.
Kash Patel's a funny one, because I know you want to discuss this in a minute, but we can bring this in now. Is he goes on Rogan's podcast, right? Yeah, there's an Epstein list. Don't worry, we're going to find everything. Don't worry about it. You had, I think it was Pamela Anderson who was talking about, yeah, don't worry, we got the file. You had the journalist holding up the folders.
Did you say Pamela Anderson?
Was that no Pamela? Something
Pam
else?
Bondi. You're thinking
Pam Bondi.
Pamela
yeah,
Anderson.
No, don't worry. I was thinking of someone.
That was a good movie over the summer.
But anyways, Pam Bondi. Yeah, she was with the folders and all that stuff, right? And gave it to the press, and now suddenly there's no list. Now suddenly there's no list. What Trump's like, why are you still talking about this? It's like, that's weird, isn't it, Donald? Like, you've done everything, but this guy, biggest yapper, right, out of New York, right? No one talks more than this guy. I don't want to discuss that story. What's going on there?
Isn't it crazy? Phase 1 was written on that file, which they gave to all these YouTubers, and there was nothing in there that was brand new. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, could have gone on the internet and pulled it all off.
I'll tell you who's done the best series on this is CoffeeZilla, where he's like done some weird 3D rendering where he's in the bloody prison and he's discussing all the different places and all that stuff, right? He's an artist on it and really good. And he's talking about how, all of this video footage is flawed and all this stuff, right? And like Kash Patel, like, what are you doing? You don't go onto a guy, the biggest podcast in, I don't like Rogan, and then be talking about, oh yeah, don't worry, we're going to expose them all. And then be like, no, there's no list, bro. What are you talking about? Are you stupid? Like, it's just crazy. You're part of the cover up. And that's the thing, like, all of these people, he's definitely in there. How implicated he is the question.
Which one?
He's
Trump?
Trump.
Patel?
No, I don't think Patel's. Oh, that'd be weird, wouldn't it? But yeah, Trump's definitely in there somewhere.
Well, didn't you hear Melania? There was a photo released of Melania kissing Epstein, and that actually they hooked up earlier, and that's according to Richard Wolff. Although the photo hasn't been published yet, it's a journalist that just keeps pumping out all this material on Epstein. And apparently, Melania hooked up with Epstein a year before she hooked up with Trump.
That wouldn't surprise me, but it's like with that whole thing, it was clear what was going on, especially when Epstein was poaching like girls from Donald Trump's what's it called, Mar-a-Lago, wherever that place is. So it's just like, it was so obvious, honestly, and they didn't care. He took a plea deal. Epstein took a plea deal in the early 2000s. Everyone knew what this guy was about.
Which was fucked. Well, that was Alex Costa, who, by the way, a few years later I can't remember which paper it was in. It was in I think it was a national newspaper, came out and said that we were told not to touch him from high above. And you're going, what do you think? Do you think that was a setup, an international setup to capture rich and powerful people?
I think they had a guy who can get information, can get videos and blackmail on people, and they let him go. And they were going to use him to blackmail other people. When you look at, the like, Bill Gates' whole thing, his wife divorced him over it because of all the stuff that came out. Imagine, right, if that information wasn't leaked to the press, right? Imagine you say to Bill Gates, look, we know you're hanging out with this dude. We don't have anything directly compromising you, but you're hanging around with a known PDF, right? We're going to leak this to the press unless you do something for us. Because she kept leaking stuff to the press about him hanging out with Epstein. I think there was an interview about it where she asked him, like, why do you keep going out there?
What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, and, I've said I regretted having those dinners. And there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for Anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. And I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy. Very proud of the work of the foundation. That's what I get up every day and focus on.
The guy is known, like Epstein is known, like for doing this thing. It's not about hanging out with any of these other scientists and all these other people, right? It's like, bro, you're Bill Gates. You're one of the most famous people on the planet. No one knows who this Jeffrey Epstein guy is. If you hold an event, everyone's going because you're a Microsoft guy. You're probably as famous.
The richest man in the world, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was probably as famous as Steve Jobs is. And everyone knows who Steve Jobs is. Everyone knows who Bill Gates is.
And Musk.
Yeah, because they've done shit. Like they're famous for being tech bros. So like, there's no way you're more famous than this Jeffrey Epstein guy who no one knew, not really. Who he had that charge on him, but no one really spoke about it until much later on.
There's a lot of other people that have been claimed to be on that island. Mick Jagger, I think, is a claim.
Oh, wouldn't surprise me.
Gonna have to check all these. Naomi Campbell is a claim.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking is a claim.
Yeah. There was a lot of people on that plane, on that island, all that kind of stuff, right? And Donald Trump's deflecting, talking about that's why he's doing all this stuff with Russia and Ukraine. There's no way he's going to get any sort of peace agreement that doesn't throw Ukraine under the bus. Let's be serious about this. He keeps talking about the stuff in the Middle East. He's got apart from probably giving away all of it to Israel, he has no real desire to do anything there. But it's all media headlines. Because he's desperate to deflect from this story. So he's doing other stuff. He's talking to the South Korean leader about, peace with North Korea. It's like, bro, these people have been fighting for a long time now. There's no way you're going to get any sort of other agreement in. No. These people hate each other. Like, they've been at war for a long time. There's nothing you're going to do. And he's deflecting from all of these things.
Because Epstein's so bad.
Yeah, they had Maxwell came out and said there's no list. It's like, you've perjured yourself on record. Like, no one's going to believe you.
Well, it's funny you say that because MAGA came out, including Alex Jones, and Alex Jones, in one of these like epiphany moments that happens once a year, came out and said their best witness is a convicted sex offender. Why would I believe that? And yet the press seemed to angle it in that sort of way of like, well, if it came across a lot in the press that because Maxwell's saying he's not involved and he's a really nice guy, that we should all take that on board. But if you look at like going back to even further, because we will go on to Ukraine and the Middle East and his peace processes and everything else. I want to stick with this just a little bit longer. If you look at the timeline that he stated, none of it makes sense. So he says that he kicked Epstein out as soon as he realized he was stealing his staff and made that as if that was the worst thing that Epstein was doing, which was weird in itself. But that doesn't make any sense because it was Maxwell that was recruiting, not Epstein. But he doesn't say anything about Maxwell other than wishing her well when she first goes into jail, which is just
but I wish her well
out there. And then he claimed that as soon as that had happened, he realized that Epstein was stealing these staff. He kicked him out. Except that's not even true because Epstein recruited through Maxwell, Virginia Roberts in I think 2002. Epstein didn't get kicked out of the club till 2007. He was still in there.
When was he convicted? Probably around then?
I think around then, yeah. So it's only until he got convicted did he get thrown out. And maybe a few years after. Maybe a few years after 2007. Yeah. We'll have to go
it's just gnarly, but again, it's the one story he refuses to talk about and he gets visibly annoyed when people discuss it. It's like, why did you get so upset about this story? Unless he wants credit for other things that he's definitely not doing. But, he talks about how, Hunter Biden and all this other stuff, right? He's like, if you talk about, Bill Clinton being, having links with Epstein, surely you want that in the public.
Except he's subpoenaed Bill Clinton and all his Democrats.
The Clintons, yeah.
But he hasn't subpoenaed himself, obviously.
Yeah.
But he also hasn't subpoenaed Alex Acosta, who gave Epstein one of the most unbelievable, unheard of deals, probably in American history.
Yeah.
But for within his crime frame. Because obviously we could talk about the Nazis that they gave a huge pass to and brought over. I'd say that's almost the equivalent of what they've done with Epstein. Because
that's probably worse. That's probably worse because they gave him a life in Argentina allegedly, where those guys did, some of those guys didn't have to do anything further, and the other guys were just working in science like they were in Germany. So that's probably worse. Yeah, that's probably worse. Yeah, that's probably worse.
It was Operation Paperclip. I've forgotten his name, but I can picture him. And he was a Nazi scientist who was working on V2 rockets that if any of the Jewish workers in his slave factory were slow, he'd hang them and he'd do 5 a day of the slowest.
Yeah,
And then
I
he
mean,
was then put in charge of NASA's rocket program.
yes, because they want to win the Cold War. But you got the dude who did experiments on twins. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to recruit him as well.
Engler.
Yeah, so there's like that's arguably worse. Honestly, like the shit they got away with is so much worse. Like as bad as Epstein is, and he was a piece of shit.
We are talking thousands of children.
Yeah, we're talking people
who apparently
put them in
have been trafficked to no one.
Yeah,
like there's no one they've been trafficked.
That's also the bizarre thing as well, because it honestly a lot of that stuff, right? If you come to that conclusion, none of it makes sense, and that's what I mean. Like all of these charges for what, and all these victims to who, like it doesn't make sense. And with this whole case, because it's kind of like the Diddy stuff as well, because they're so ingrained into upper society, it doesn't get dealt with because it could be someone who's implicated. That's the problem, and they don't want it to be exposed. It's both parties that are implicated in this.
Except they're only going for the Democrats now.
Yeah,
but then I get the feeling that we're going to have that to and froing quite a bit in the future because the Democrats are going to go, well, you went for us, now we're going to go back for you.
Yeah, which they should have done ages ago with some of the stuff. Like they could have grabbed Trump in before, and they probably should have done. Or anyone who was linked, like they're both parties are so tied up in this. It's crazy. It's the Spider-Man meme of them pointing at each other. Like that's why they can't get out of it. They don't want to discuss it. But the thing is, people want the story discussed because it's one of the biggest trafficking scandals on the planet.
Easily.
Like this story is absolutely bonkers. It makes no sense.
And that's why there's always this issue of whether or not the whole thing is being some sort of international operation from behind the scenes. Like, do you know how much money Epstein had in his account once he died?
It wasn't the billions, was it?
Nowhere near that. It's interesting you think that number, though. It was 56 million.
Okay.
But the island, Epstein Island, is 112. And it cost millions just to run that. Plus he had his ranch. Plus he had his New York apartment, which is the most expensive apartment in New York. But he only had 56 million in the account.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I think it was Eric Weinstein talk about this on a UK podcast. And he was saying he met Epstein. And Eric Weinstein is a financial broker. I think he's a physicist or mathematician. I can't remember which. But that's what he used to be, a financial manager. And he said, and he was working at Harvard, and he was told to go and meet Epstein. And his claim is that he met him, walked away, didn't know who he was, just that he met him, and phoned his wife and said, I've just met the construct.
And my take on it instantly was, this is not an actual human. This is a construct of someone's. Someone has created a fake human being called Jeffrey Epstein.
What he meant by that was someone who says there's something, but they're clearly not. And there's a different motive behind as to why he's been acting and saying these things, as if someone's managed him and said, you are now going to tell people you're this. And Eric Weinstein was just like, he doesn't know shit about movement of the yen and the euro and the pound and the dollar. He is not a genius from that conversation he had with him.
I think he made his money through blackmail. I think he blackmailed some rich dudes in New York. And I think that's how he made his money, under the guise of him being a financier. And then what he did was he continued to make money from blackmail, and from trafficking. I think that's how he made his fortune. And I think that there were reports of him having offshore bank accounts and stuff like that as well. And I would not be surprised if a lot of his money is tied up offshore. He had connections with, I think it was Deutsche Bank, where he used that account to essentially commit money laundering and all sorts of other things. And it's like, the American system's so disgusting with this because no one dealt with it at all. A lot of people knew about it, especially up in society, but refused to do anything.
I think 2 of the banks have paid out compensation to the victims that he used. I won't name them because I can't remember. I think maybe Deutsche, and I think the other one was Morgan's. But yeah, fucking huge banks paying out. I know his will put everything into a black trust, I think it's called. So it's completely hidden. That's gone to his relatives, who then paid out hundreds of thousands to victims. So there was obviously a large sum of money kicking around in the background. But again, we don't know the full details and where it's all come from. And this is one of those things where if you were going to get them, it would have been on a Al Capone thing, go for the taxes. Because it just, none of it made sense. It's none of it. Like the whole thing is like probably one of the biggest mysteries of our, like Amelia Earhart's disappearance was the big one of that generation. This is our big one.
Because I think the IRS, even if they were going to go after him, they would have got lent on by someone to let him go because he had them sort of connections in the American government.
I did a timeline analysis of all of the stuff, and I found, I think it's a woman called Maria Farmer who was one of the first victims, along with her sister, of Epstein, and she said she ended up reporting it to the FBI, and then claimed a few weeks later she got a phone call from Maxwell and Epstein having a go at her about reporting it to the FBI. And I'm going, who in fuck has that level of power? Who? Honestly, I don't know many people that would be able to have that level of influence, that someone in the FBI got wind of this and phoned them up and essentially probably told them to nip it in the bud, and yet completely ignored. And then I think there was like 3 other cases where people reported him to the police and nothing happened. No investigation was open.
Wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if they buried it. I mean, saw that with Savile as well in the UK. People just didn't believe him or buried the case. But I think this one's worse. I think he had serious connections within certain parts of America where anything that, as soon as his name popped up, they just killed. Not Savile, maybe Savile, Epstein, Savile. Yeah, both. But I think Epstein definitely had some connections up there.
Well, it's funny you say that, because where's the UK Epstein list? I mean, no, Andrews should be on it. And then where on earth is the Savile list?
Yeah.
We know a bunch of people were protecting him. Like
Johnny
Rotten got it out on the BBC that something's wrong with Savile, and they edited it out and they was never allowed back on. That's called a cover-up. And because of that, a load of other women were then attacked. And yet, has there been an investigation in the UK? Will there ever be? No. And yet some of those people are clearly going to still be alive.
There was the dodgy dossier as well that Theresa May lost, which was a bit suspicious, very suspicious. There was a couple of examples of that in Parliament where they would lose things and things would get misplaced. I mean, there was an MP. The fact that MPs that I think get charged with crimes, their names aren't made public.
No.
So it's like, what's going on with that? So
a number of I think there's about 3 or 4 youth homes in the UK that have had allegations. And it's gone to the police, and then the police have lost the reports, and they never even began to follow up on these reports. And then if you listen to some of the people who claim to have come from those homes and were taken to, they claim that they were taken to London. They were told, if you want to have a good time, this is the only time you're going to have it. You'll get everything you want. You just have to do exactly what these men say. And you're like, holy fuck. And then some of them have even come out now and claimed that they recognize them as politicians or rich, famous people. And I'm going, how the fuck have these networks been set up where you've got rich and powerful people in London finding all these orphanages and then exploiting all these children, and nothing's been done about it? Not a single person's been charged. And you're going, what? Oh, like, it feels like there's that other layer above us. Typical British class system. But also it seems in America, if you're rich enough, there's a layer of protection that is abnormal. What is going on in the UK? Like, none of this has been followed up. Nothing was, and no one talks. Like, if you look at the US news, it's heavy on Epstein at the moment. Like, and in part, it's also because it's absolutely knackered Trump's approval rating. It's like one of the few things that's actually knackered. But here in the UK, no one's talking about the Epstein list. It's not regular news. No one's talking about the fact they did bring people to England and France. No investigation's been opened up. And then you go, well, it didn't happen with Savile, didn't happen with these care homes and orphanages. And it almost feels like there's this like weird cult at the top, or a subsection at the top that have this weird cult where they do anything they want to and exploit whoever they want. And I feel like it feels odd because you know that it's going on. You know no one's doing anything about it. And yet, if I was to say it's hard to imagine, you would still be told you're naive. It's almost like a dirty secret, everyone. It's like knowing that Harry Potter's been shoved in the cupboard and you're not doing anything about it. You're just living it with it and letting it happen.
Yeah, honestly, I think you can make a movie about all this Epstein stuff, right? No one will believe you. No one will believe the plot is so stupid as everyone believes, they'll traffic to no one. Essentially, it was one dude. All of these thousands of girls, one dude. So no one will believe that at all.
Well, we say all of that. Did you hear that Virginia Giuffre is releasing a book from Beyond the Grave.
I saw her. Yeah, that's a bit. I don't think there'll be anything major in that one. Honestly, I've got a strong feeling.
I mixed. It could be a big. I mean, it's going to sell. Whatever happens, that book will sell because everyone's going to want to get their hands on it because everyone's going to go, that's the one person we all trust is telling the truth in this. And then you go, if they did whack her, wow, they must be kicking themselves now because she left a piece. It's almost like a silver bullet she's left behind because you can't do anything to her now.
Yeah.
That book's with the lawyers and it's now in publishing process, and she's probably left money to make sure the book's published worldwide. And who's not going to buy that book?
Yeah. Well,
It's
me, because
almost-
I don't read, but
Yeah, we established that earlier.
that's what I'm saying. That's the joke. It's a callback. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not sure you'll have like. I think a lot of the times when books like this get released, there's not much that's new in them, and I'm amazed because she didn't die. She didn't die straight away. I think from the car accident or wherever she died. She would have said something then. I think.
What, before she? Well, unless she was worried that they would come and hurt her kids and threaten her.
Yeah, but they'd do
That's
that
the big
anyways.
difference.
That would always be the threat, though, and like.
But if
know,
you're
like,
dead,
yeah,
they can't threaten you at all.
yeah, they can threaten the lawyers though. They can, you could
Mhm.
you could get this killed like if they wanted to. So I don't think it'll be that as big as people make out. I think it'll have. It'll
Then
probably
who
go
do
into
they
detail.
sue?
I think
You
it'll go
can't
into.
sue Virginia Giuffre. It's her
It'll
book.
be her estate in it. Her estate, or
Would
yeah,
it?
that'll be it. Probably, yeah. It depends on who's in the care of the book,
I wonder if it
Um,
also depends on how she set everything up to be published.
the trust or whatever. But I reckon it's going to have a lot more details about a certain prince of the realm.
Yes.
I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of, because she spoke about him the most.
Do you reckon she was whacked?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, right? If you think about how powerful these people are, right, and the best example I can think of this is a certain company that makes airplanes in the world, right, that had massive lawsuits and other stuff filed against it, and it had whistleblowers whacked, people who had commit suicide in the most Russian ways possible, and you're like, right, this airplane company can have people whacked, right? There's no way the others couldn't do it. Like it wouldn't be that expensive to do it, honestly. If you're a multimillionaire and you think you think someone's going to do something that's going to really damage you, I don't see why not.
I guess the pushback to me would always be once you've issued that order, that person now has you in blackmail.
Depends if they know who's paid. There's
True.
a couple of people who might have wanted her gone. If you think about
You know
it,
a lot. You know more than me.
that's it. Goodbye, Alex. Yeah.
Is that the sign?
Yeah, no. But if you think about it, right, it's not that hard to figure out. Like, who did she put allegations against, right? That's one thing. She put allegations against multiple different people, and so there's multiple different people who could do it. So unless
Royal family.
exactly, and
You
they've got money, they've got shooters, 100%.
They've got an army.
Yeah, they got everything they would need to do it, and she's gone. Like that story will fade away eventually.
Now that she's gone, it'll be quicker.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. No,
we'll
they're
see
going
what
to release her
happens with
book.
the book.
They're going to have her book. It's going to be public outcry for a while. All of these people who say they care about the kids will go silent because they always do. And then in about 6 months' time, they'll be on to something else. So
Maybe sooner, depending on what Trump comes up with.
yeah,
or
if you think
Starmer
about
comes up with.
how big Trump's spam in the news cycle now, right? He's talking to, I think it's the leader of South Korea. He's talking to leaders in Europe. He's talking to Ukraine. He's probably going to talk to Netanyahu within the next few months, right? He's been really busy. Rolled out the red carpet in Alaska for Vladimir Putin. Army invasion of DC. He's been very busy. When you look at this news cycle, he's done a lot in the last month. That this is stuff you would see over about a year or at least 6 months with Donald Trump.
Did you think he was going to get a peace deal in Alaska?
No, but I think he knew that. When you look at, I'll go back to my boy William Spaniel, Lines on Maps, where Russia's demand would be at least all of the land that they have captured. I imagine there's no way they would concede any of it because they've taken it through military means. So he might say, look, everything I've taken, I want. The rest that's left there is yours. If he was gonna, that'd be the best deal that he could make, I think, because there's no way he's going to concede any land he's taken. That'd be stupid. Because what was the point of taking it and holding on to it then? If you're going to concede, if you're going to retreat slightly, it doesn't make any sense. So I think that's the deal that he was going to always go for. That's best case scenario. I think worst case scenario, he wants more. He wants the entire regions that he's got over there in Ukraine. So there was no way he was going to get a peace deal, and he knew it. Same thing with what's his face, Netanyahu. There's no way they're going to get any sort of peace agreement out of him unless they can take all of Palestine, or at least all of Gaza, all of that
Oh, it's
territory.
gone. It's gone. And I'm pretty
Yep.
sure within 10 years, you're going to see a massive construction project coming in from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. You're going to see a
10.
canal.
I'll give it a 5. Honestly, I'll give it about
And
5 years.
I think that was the whole. They wanted to tie in the noose around Gaza.
Yeah.
And as soon as I mean, this is straight out of what America did with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
They'd send farmers out there onto their land, and then the natives would turn up from touring around and go, "What the hell are you doing on our property?" And the farmer would go, "No, it's my property." And probably miscommunication, anger, tension, racial hatred would escalate it, cause the farmer to get killed, maybe some of the natives, and then the Americans go, look at them, they're really aggressive. They attacked an innocent farmer and his family. Let's send the military in and take that land.
They just agitate though as well. Like they'll cause constant issues. They used to kill the wild buffalo and stuff like that. They used to do all sorts of stuff. That's what the settlers do. They'll cut off people's water and other things, and they'll push the villagers out. And if they try and fight back, they say, "Oh, look at these guys! They attacked us for no reason," and they just go in there with more force. That's what they kept doing. If you build anything, they'll knock it down. If your family's a member of Hamas or whatever, they'll get rid of the whole family house and kick out everyone there. That's what they kept doing.
You ever seen the Abby Martin video where she goes into central Jerusalem and interviews people in a vox pop to ask them their thoughts on what should be done with Arab states and Gaza and Palestine?
I don't think so.
It's some of the wildest stuff I've ever seen. She managed to pick a wide age range, and I think I saw 4 or 5 interviews, and they were just seemed like average people walking around Jerusalem, and they were like, "Yeah, just wipe them out, exterminate them." And you're like, "Holy fuck!" But then you go, "Well, it's also, I mean, no doubt the same on the opposite side," and it's just this brutal, decades-long. One side's going to win and one side's going to lose, and whoever loses is pretty much going to be exterminated.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I think they're going to push off as many people off the land as they can. They're attacking. They killed a bunch of journalists recently, man.
They always kill journalists.
Yeah,
they don't care.
In the hospital. Yeah,
and there's no consequence to it.
And
like,
I think
where the fuck is the UN? And why have they not just gone and put a border around the whole?
The UN ain't going to do shit.
No.
The United Nations.
You've got multiple vetoes.
Yes, the UNSC. That's the Security Council. They would never. The US would never allow something like that to happen.
Or Britain. I don't think Britain.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I think what we'd do is we wouldn't veto it. We would just abstain. But that's what I mean.
I'll never forget Netanyahu going into the UN and basically showing a map of Israel, like a big cardboard cutout. Yeah. And there's no Palestine. There's no Gaza. It's not on the map. It's just Israel. And you're like, wow. If you're like trying to wind someone up, that's something that will cause them to do that. And then he just went, we want this big economic corridor coming through. And you're going, wow. And then when you look at it, I looked at it on Google Maps, you can see actually there is a flat terrain to go from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean, which would then be a competition to the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
And it will generate billions. There's no arguing. It will generate billions in revenue, whoever owns that. But it's got to go past Gaza. And that's why I think part of this has happened.
Yeah, the crazy thing is Egypt are too dumb to see it. If they go with this plan, it's going to cost Egypt a lot of money because
no, because they'll own the other side.
Yeah, but if you bypass
the Egyptian government, it'd be like, "Oh, yeah, this sounds great."
If you bypass the Suez Canal and you don't need it anymore or as much, they're going to lose a lot of money because they put fees on ships coming through.
I would argue they're already losing revenue because of what's happening in the south.
Yeah, the Houthis.
Where you've got pirates pirating, attacks, shooting, firing of rockets at boats. So they're already losing that. I would argue it's interesting because in London they've got the similar thing. When you build those bridges, you think, oh, if it's only one purpose like bikes or pedestrian, no one's going to use it. But actually humans will use it. And in fact, it'll probably generate even more revenue and open up more opportunities. Like the Suez Canal got blocked only a few years ago and everyone went into full panic mode. Remember that?
Yeah.
So you're going to have to, it makes sense to have two anyway. And Egypt will still have to, I'd be shocked if they were able to do it any other way. I'm pretty sure Egypt will have the other half of the running, or they'll have a share within that canal as well. So they'll have the Suez Canal, which is theirs, and they'll have a chunk of this canal as well. Yeah. I think you'll just continue to have, it'll generate more revenue. It'll just be more trade. It will just be a good thing.
Oh, I don't know. But
you're looking up.
Yeah, I had a little look at the maps, but I'd have to have a proper look. So I'd have to, yeah, it wouldn't be justice to the podcast if I went off looking at maps and trying to figure out geography, which I'm not the best at. But yeah, in all honesty, like, yeah, I don't think I want to finish on the US just yet. But like I said, with Trump, I think this is a big. He's trying to cover up the Epstein stuff mostly. That's why he's doing all of this media, because he wants the coverage on that stuff. Whereas if I was in the media, right, I'd see all these world leaders there. I'd be like, "What do you think of Jeffrey Epstein?" That's what. That's how I'd lose my press credentials real fast.
But
I'd
then
be
he'll
like,
gaslight you and be like, no one's talking.
no, I'll be like, so Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, there's a guy who visited your country a few times, hung out with Prince of the Realm, Andrew. What do you think of Jeffrey Epstein? I know you prosecuted a few pedophiles in your time. What do you think? And that's how I'd phrase it.
I'd be tempted to do that if I ever got in there.
Yeah.
As a journalist.
I'd lose my press credentials straight away, but it'd be worth it.
It'd be worth it for a one
probably
shot.
get thrown out, but yeah,
I think it would be worth it. Like, and no one does bring it up. You cause such a furore. I can imagine your face. You'd be smiling all the way out.
No, I'd be deadpan. I'd be like, bro, you're the one who got a load of, you changed the rules so a load of pedophiles can get arrested in the UK. Great job, by the way. So, what do you think about, known pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and all of that kind of stuff? Do you think, do you think he trafficked the kids to no one?
Would you be tempted to ask the press why they're not reporting on it?
A little bit, yeah. I think the problem with the press is they always cover nonsense stories when they don't want to cover stuff like this. And I think the public are quite interested in this stuff because Trump made such a big thing of it. Well, I think it was during the election or maybe just after it, was like, oh yeah, we're going to release all this information, all of this stuff. You remember they had so much going on about this news story, and then it just died out because Trump refuses to discuss it, and because he's doing so much stuff elsewhere. I think the press is so focused on other things where they need to focus on the one thing he don't want to discuss, which is that. Like he would happily talk about any conflict in the world, any situation going, right? He'd happily talk about, the Delta Force attacking cartels in Mexico, but he don't want to discuss Epstein.
And yeah, it's the thing that's damaging him the most, and it's the thing that he does need to talk about and get rid of. He can try and push. It's amazing how much it's like you were talking earlier about how things can die out in cycles. Like Virginia Giuffre. This hasn't died out compared to most news stories. Especially in the States where there's so much else going on.
It's because it's such a big story, and it's because the cover-up is so obvious. You have, the most powerful man in the world implicated in one of the worst scandals in American history, at least modern American history, right? And you got a guy who just doesn't want to discuss it. He could, if he said, look, I hung out with a few times, we're in the same circles. He was convicted in, the early 2000s, cut ties with him, whatever, right? It's something that you can prove potentially to be true.
Except he had that love letter.
Yeah.
Which he sent. He's like, Trump's now suing Murdoch.
Wall Street Journal, I think it is,
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal, which is owned by Murdoch, which is one of the wildest things. So he's suing one of his biggest supporters. And they're not doing great at the moment. Do you see that Systematic are now claiming 2.7 billion in damages from Murdoch? Have you seen that?
What's that about?
That's to do with the falsification claim, the false claims of the election being rigged, and there's no evidence to show that.
That's not finished yet. I thought that was done.
There's
I thought
two.
There's
Systematic, and there was another one, Dominion.
Yeah,
Dominion's done, and they got about 900 million. Systematic is still going on. It's 2.7 billion they're claiming, and they just released a load of text messages from Fox, which shows there's no evidence, and they should be cautious about releasing the story.
How is that still going? It's been years. Was that under
something like that?
When was this under Biden? He said it was rigged. Was it when Biden won? Is that the election?
Yeah,
it must.
So that's now coming up to 5 years. It's been in court.
This lawsuit's
because Dominion settled out of court.
Yeah,
they just took the 900 and walked off, and that's wild when you think about Rupert Murdoch having that amount of power and money that he's able to just give away 900 million, and it doesn't seem to have affected Fox or any of his papers. They're still printing and still publishing, but 2.7 billion, 2.7 billion. I mean,
they won't get that much. Yeah.
Well, no, what they'll probably do is settle out of court, but I hope they don't, because I want to see this in court, because everyone's going to go, well, MAGA will go, oh, where's the evidence? Probably. Okay, I'll be more careful than that. Some MAGA will. The cult MAGA followers will just continue going, nah,
they'll just say it's the courts, the woke courts or something like that,
But there's no evidence. The evidence they have shows that Fox are going, there's no evidence.
What you got to say is
mad.
What you got to say is Donald Trump said only guilty people settle, and that's all they got to play. Only guilty people settle, right?
Donald Trump said that if you take the Fifth Amendment, you must be a liar. You must be hiding something, which is exactly what Jeffrey Epstein did when asked if Donald Trump and him hung out with underage girls. You couldn't make it up.
That's what I'm saying, though. So, like, honestly, I think when it comes to Trump, I think you get a good taste of, all the Doge stuff and all those kind of things, right? All the chaos. I think in the UK we can kind of see where we're heading and who we can get. And I think Nigel Farage is probably a slicker operator than Donald Trump. In all honesty, Trump is more. I think Trump's a lot more charismatic. I think Trump has a lot more energy. Well, at least he used to. But I think Nigel Farage is. I think he hides the racism and things like that a lot better. Nigel Farage would never come out with a statement talking about any minority group saying they're pedophiles, they're rapists. I assume some are good people. He wouldn't come out with such an outlandish statement, but he has not rapists and pedophiles.
He has.
What about who?
Romanians.
He didn't say that. He said they're thieves. He didn't call them that.
No, he said I wouldn't move in next door to them.
That's
and
very
O'Brien
different.
went, why not? And he went, you know why? And O'Brien went, no, explain it.
And what about the line about not wanting to live next door to Romanians? It's perfectly acceptable for people not to want to.
I was asked if a group of Romanian men moved in next door to you, would you be concerned?
What about if a group of German children did? What's the difference?
The difference, and you know what the difference is.
No, I honestly don't. This is, I think, where the disconnect is between your position and mine. What is the difference?
We want an immigration policy based on controlling not just quantity but quality as well.
And you gloss so smoothly and so slickly demonising Romanians and demonising Germans.
I'm not demonising anybody.
But you just asked you a question about Romanians and you started talking about people traffickers.
I'm demonising.
It's clearly he's got prejudice.
He's insinuating something, but he's not outright saying it. There's a big difference. And that's what I mean. He's much more intelligent in that way. He's much better at saying, you know what he does? The best thing he does is, right, I'm just asking questions. That's his trademark. I'm just asking questions, guys.
That's a question.
I asked a very simple question.
I'm asking questions.
I asked the question.
I'm asking questions.
Because the people wanted to know the truth.
Because I'm brave enough to ask questions, I come under scrutinies. Your teachers don't want to tell you, but they are scared, and they should be, because the very fabric of this elementary school is tearing from all corners.
Where have we heard that before?
But I'm worried, not just about the events in Southport, but about societal decline that is happening in our country. Law and order, folks, on our streets is breaking down.
He's like, why are there, he'll say something like, why is it that people in the EDL pretend to care about women, but some of them have been convicted on domestic abuse charges for hitting women? I'm just asking questions, guys. I'm just saying, how much do they really care about women when people are that role in the organization? That's the kind of stuff he would do.
I did a whole episode where I compared Nigel Farage and his actions to Eric Cartman, and the parallels are fucking crazy. Yeah. But even better than that, South Park then trolled Charlie Kirkman, who's a YouTube podcaster.
Yeah.
Horrible, horrible person. But they trolled him by basically saying that Cartman no longer has a role because you've now all taken Cartman as a real character and replicated him in real life. That was so meta in one of their episodes. And that's what we've got over here. Like Nigel Farage, Eric Cartman's done a Nazi march through a small town. Nigel Farage was caught doing a Nazi sing-along in a small village at 3 a.m.
Some members of staff expressed their concern after the teenage Farage was appointed a prefect, including a claim that he marched through a village late at night singing Hitler Youth songs.
What?
He's said racist comments in school.
He's definitely said, yeah.
It was reported by John Carlin in El País that he told a Jewish pupil Hitler was right.
Cartman said racist comments in school. They just asked questions. Cartman had a whole radio show about asking questions.
I remember. And
that's what Nigel Farage. Like the parallels go on.
Yeah,
it's actually really shocking how much the similarity is.
It's the questions angle that always gets me because it's like, oh, what if the Southport killer was this? And then it just spirals from there. And that's where he's better at drawing the line there. And I think with Farage, it's really obvious. He had a whole press conference. I think it was yesterday, which will be Tuesday for you guys watching, about all of this stuff, right? It being given a massive platform by like the BBC, unfiltered and things like that. It's like no one else seems to get this, and the BBC love Nigel Farage. He gets some views. They're not even funded by ads, but he gets them views, and they love it.
And then you watch, they do love it, and then you go, what are the biggest problems in the UK right now? And you go, the birth rate is a problem. I've now been banging on about that for a couple of years. Andrew Bailey from the bank came out and said this week, we have an acute worker shortage. We have a housing crisis. Inflation's up at 3.3%. The EU is 2.2%. So we're above what we're expected, even though
So we're doing better than them.
promised.
That's why we left, because we're doing better. See, we got higher number. Higher is always better. So we're winning.
And then you've got people coming out and saying that the country's full, even though 1.5% of the country is residentially built. 1.5%. So you could double the amount of houses to 3%, and the rest of the country is well, actually it's a bit more complicated.
Probably Wales and Scotland's probably a lot more countryside than it is in England, but England does have a fair bit of countryside.
But again, no one's talking about that. You've got to shift stuff up north and use the space out there and pull out this.
You had Nicola Sturgeon recently on and as much as I don't like this too, the Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell podcast talking about how Scotland needs more immigration, but because the UK's immigration system is just for the whole of the UK, it doesn't help Scotland. So yeah, like she was talking about I think not declining birth rates, but I think it must have been shrinking population, something on those lines. Talk about how they need more people up there. So it is a major problem. And I think Farage, when he said I'd end the 2-child benefit cut, I was like, whoa, that was kind of crazy to me. But for the rest of the stuff, he's going to decimate healthcare. He wants an American-style healthcare system. He doesn't talk about it as much, and the media don't talk about it too much because they're very focused on immigration. I would wager, right, if the media didn't talk about immigration as much, it wouldn't be in the top 3 issues. That is now. I think it goes the economy, asylum, and the NHS. I think it's definitely economy first, and the other two, I think they change. But it's because the media constantly talk about it, and I think the media talk about it most because it's the easiest thing to talk about. It's like, oh no, numbers go up. Whereas talking about the NHS is more complicated because there's more levels to it. There's more layers.
We've got a housing shortage.
Difficult.
We've got a housing shortage of 4 million. I saw Jimmy the Giant versus Konstantin Kissin the other day. Oh, by the way, they were complaining on one of their episodes that they don't get any left-winger people on because no one will come on. Just so you know, Konstantin and whoever the weird bloke is, that his sort of puppet,
he reminds me of
we'll happily come on if you invite us. We'll happily come on and we'll have me and Madge will have a debate with you. I'm not tolerating this crap of the left wing won't come on our show.
Lefties with big platforms. That's what it means. Or no soft left people, as in people who can bully. Because I watched his video with Tommy Robinson, right? And it wasn't a conversation. It was just him monologuing for ages, and it was crazy. I think he must have spoke for about 20 minutes without any sort of interruption or any kind of follow up
or pushback. The opening comment, I only watched about 30 minutes of it and got bored. But the opening comments he said was like 10% of the Quran is
Mein Kampf. I think it's Mein Kampf. He said like 10.
No, he said 7% for Mein Kampf, and I think he said 11% for the Quran. And I went, you can't quantify that. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's just gibberish what he said there. And then I was like, well, the fucking Bible is probably like, everyone uses the Old Testament pretty much verbatim. So I'm going, well, then that would include Christianity. So what the fuck? What in fuck is he talking about? And no pushback.
Yeah.
Like, how do you quantify that? How do you gauge what is anti-Semitic within that text? Obviously, there's some that's clear and others is less. But no academic would take that comment seriously. And they just go, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just plucking shit out of the air. And also it doesn't make sense. But also you're implicating other religions, Judaism, Christianity within that, because they all pretty much, obviously there's variation, copy each other for the Old Testament. So you're going, what in fuck? And they just sat there. They just sat there and just went, Are you fucking stupid? You've just platformed him.
Honestly, it was kind of embarrassing because I watched it and I was like, mate, like, even if I had someone I agreed with on, I would still at least try and discuss stuff and not just let them talk for 20 minutes. But that's the thing though, like when these right wingers are on certain platforms, they barely get any pushback. Like I saw a clip with how what's his face Farage is talking about leaving the ECHR, right? Obviously that affects the Good Friday Agreement and the trade and cooperation deal. And Victoria Derbyshire had Richard Tyson, and she brings that point up, and then she's kind of like, yeah, we'll see about that. And I'm like, mate, that is not how you confront these people. That is not how you do it, honestly. And I was like, not you as well, like, like you can't put her on Fraud Watch as well. She's one of the better journalists. But it's like that was a really bad interview. And she's one of the better ones. So like Laura Kunzberg would be like, oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I'm sure Ireland will renegotiate the Good Friday Agreement 100%.
I watched that, and you're right. He said that about the ECHR, and he implied that they could leave. And then he was asked by separate journalists how you would leave the ECHR with the Good Friday Agreement. And he came out and said, oh, that'd be really difficult. That could take years to be able to do. And you're going, you're fucking mental.
Yeah.
And then you're going, well, that's going to probably raise the problems and troubles within Ireland because you're creating a bigger division on the island. And so you're going, you're nuts. And all the press are just lapping it up.
Yeah,
There's
honestly,
no pushback. There's no questioning. There's nothing.
I'm telling you now, he must get him a lot of views or something. There's something in there where they must look at the metrics. It's like how Conor McGregor was in the MMA space, where every organization would cover him because he would just get them immediate views. It must be something in that, because it's the only reason why, unless you're genuinely cowardly, I don't get why there's not more pushback on the geezer, because he doesn't, on the NHS, he's awful. He's got a track record of saying he'll privatize it. They talked about getting non-governmental organizations or charities into the NHS. Is like, that is privatization. You're not letting the NHS do its job.
Yeah.
You're getting an outside organization. Well, who cares if they don't make a profit? The NHS doesn't make a profit. So
I always go, would you rather the profit gets put back into treatment, or do you want the profit to go off into someone else's bank account?
And we've seen what a privatized system does in the trains. The trains are bad.
All
and
the
the trains
water.
they have near monopolies. If you look at the things that have near monopolies in this country, they run badly, right?
Yeah.
You've got, if you want to go to private healthcare insurance, we're going to have probably a similar insurance system that we have to cars. It's dog shit.
I ran some numbers, which I think no one in the press has brought up to it. But if you switched into a private system and you got rid of the NHS, you would still have to keep the NHS online as you transferred into the private system.
Yeah.
Do you know how much that would cost alone? Extra. 60 billion. 60 fucking billion extra to keep that going for a few. So that 60 billion that could have gone to just keeping the NHS going now has to go into this private, setting up the private system. And you're going, no one's talking about that. No one, I've not seen that in the press anywhere. Our press is just piss poor.
Yeah,
it's not doing its job of holding government to account. It's there as its lapdog.
Honestly, I think with a lot of this stuff, immigration is just the easiest thing to do. It's like, oh yeah, let's jump on a speedboat and go to Calais and start filming people. Let's go camp out at Dover. You can see people on boats. When I don't get why they're not asking the government, why don't you set up a processing center in France? I genuinely don't get why the media just aren't asking that question to like Yvette Cooper and stuff. They're like, oh, we need to smash the gangs. Is like, how's that going for you? Because I think the
smash the gangs in a different country.
Yeah,
I
mean, honestly, I will get to that in a minute actually, because I did see a really stupid article from someone. But with Farage, they don't know how to tackle him. I saw Starmer again put out a statement saying, "Oh yeah, we're doing more deportations and all this stuff. If you're here illegally, we'll find you." And I'm like, mate, you can't out Nigel Farage. You just can't do it. You can't say we're gonna. He's talking about deporting 600,000 people.
How many?
I think it's like 600,000. I think that's the number he gave.
So the birth rate to mortality rate divide means we're short of about 400 to 450,000 a year. Last year, would you like to guess how many people left the UK again?
Gone.
500,000. So he wants, and that's continuing as a trend, because people will continue to leave. They think the country's collapsing and turning into something they don't like. And then he wants to support another 600,000, and we've got a worker shortage.
Yeah, he's talking, but that's what I mean. They're just going to go for unemployed people and the disabled. That's all they're going to do. They're going to say, well, because I saw a guy on a podcast recently, right? I won't mention their name. He's talking about how is it fair that people who are working should pay more in tax to support people who aren't working. He's talking about, and this is a guy who's on the left, by the way, guys. He's clearly aiming at disabled people and people who are on unemployment, and that's the exact angle that Nigel Farage is going to take. So if you've got people who are meant to be on the left saying this point, it's going to be so easy for Farage to win. Honestly, he doesn't even need the media on side to win this one. It's such an easy dub for him. You're fighting him on immigration, his easiest topic to date. Honestly, so easy for him to fight on that one.
So the problem with that argument, when they bring it up about being fairness, what they're really saying is that they want to go back to the days of Oliver Twist, and they want people out in the street dying of starvation and increased criminality because they're going, I've got nothing to lose. In fact, there'll probably be a benefit of not living in the street to actually be in prison, because at least I'll have a roof over my head and I'll have food in my belly. That's essentially what they're saying. They want to go back to the Victorian period. And the thing is, part of the reason why the welfare system in the UK got set up was because when we went to war, which we're quite close to doing right now, they found that there was such heavy malnutrition in the troops that they couldn't actually do a land army. Because that's what happens when you go full capitalist. Like you go psycho-capitalist or capitalist selection, as I like to call it, where you base people's merits on how much money they've got in their bank account and nothing else. And then those that don't should basically die, is what they're saying. They should be just, left to it on the street to die. And that's what they're saying when they're really saying it's not a fair system. It's like, who the fuck said anything's fair in life?
Yeah.
Like, where the fuck did you get that idea? Life is not fair. But what you do is you set this system up to equate to reduce other issues that'll come because you're obsessed with this fairness issue. Life isn't fair. We try and balance it out, so we rise everyone up. It's also a bit like, sorry, man, I will finish. Yeah. I mean, there's also the potential factor in there. If you get this youth generation coming through that have all had a lot of nutrition, lots of exercise, being looked after, who knows what the fuck they're going to invent and create? You might have another Shakespeare that brings £1 trillion to the economy. And FYI, that is my calculation so far of how much Shakespeare has brought in over the last 500 years to the UK economy. It's trillions. And they're going, no, we only want to, those children can suffer because their parents aren't good at capitalism. That's their line. Sorry, go on. That's my rant.
There's no real social mobility, especially not anymore nowadays. Like, I don't know, like when you look at this stuff, you look at what Farage is saying, deporting all of these people and things like that. I think if Labour keep trying to fight on immigration, he's going to lose. When you look at the polls, Reform are up by a decent amount. I think Starmer is so hated. I can't see him running in the next election. I can't see him winning. Because I think people don't like him, and the problem is elections are popularity races. People think they're voting for the leader. Who they're going to vote for, Mr. I have pints every Friday, and I smoke cigarettes, or the guy who's just empty, just stick in the mud, Starmer. There's not much to him. I don't get him. Like, he keeps talking about smashing the gangs. When you look at the statements he's making on immigration, doesn't make sense. He's talking about trying to grow the economy. Rachel Reeves, you've got Andrew Neil talking about how, essentially, like, she's not got that much time left in her role as Chancellor. And, I said it before the election, the fiscal rules would be a major problem. What's the major problem in the fiscal rules? Because you said it over 5 years. So if you want to reduce debt as a percentage of GDP, you either cut spending or you get growth, or you do both. They had no plan for growth apart from press the growth button, go Zoom. Right? There was literally, I think it was a shadow minister on Politics Live who said that, economy will grow, just go boom. Zoom, it doesn't make sense. You've got economy that's stagnant. You've got inflation. They're talking about a 1970 style crisis. I wasn't around back in the 70s, but I heard it wasn't great. And you've got more and more economists.
Until we join the EU.
You've got more and more people, right? Talking about it, and the problem is, first of all, you're going to cause a crisis of confidence in the economy, but also you've got like some bozo writing in, I think it was like the Independent or the Guardian recently, talking about how what Starmer needs to do is fight Farage on Brexit and talk about how much of a disaster Brexit was. It's like, what? Like, that's not how you're going to beat him. You're not going to beat him by going back over to a vote almost a decade ago. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't think Labour have any real idea how to fight the geezer. Like, when you look at the stuff that's happening with Labour as well, you've got former junior minister here, Tulip Siddiq, who's being taken, who's facing trial in Bangladesh. So-called best candidates. You've got another one who had to resign recently over, her basically doing something with her tenants in accommodation she owns. Why the hell you have ministers and landlords, or even MPs as landlords, is beyond me. They should either have to sell, or if you're a landlord, you can't run as an MP. I'm sorry. You can't have this system.
Too much bias.
You're conflicted.
But then, can you say that with any profession?
I think being a landlord,
like if I was an artist and I became an MP, does that mean
what are you going to do to help you? Unless you're going to reduce taxes on art, the purchase of art, or
you might do.
You're going to face an uphill battle on that one.
You see, the thing I think about the housing issue is that the reason people are saying you can't be a landlord to be in there is because there just isn't enough housing. If there was enough housing, then no one would give a flying shit, and everyone would be quite happy.
Probably.
And
there wasn't such demand for housing.
We always reference Norway, but it seems to be quite standard to have 2 homes there, one summer home and one residential home. And yet here, that's a mythical pipe dream for the majority. I mean, a third of the country don't even have naught. They have naught to 250 quid in their bank account. Nonetheless, a fucking second home.
What
and
I'd
the
like to
chances of
see,
the youth generation buying a house are just next to none.
yeah. What I'd
then-
like to see in Norway is do they like, because in the UK you buy a second home not really for a holiday home, you buy it to rent out for your pension. I wonder how many people in Norway do buy a second or third home for pension reasons rather than for using it for like a holiday house because it's cold as hell in Norway.
But then
That's the problem we have in
the
the
other
UK.
problem, isn't it? So this comes to the crux of it. The wages aren't where they need to be able to live a good life because they've stagnated, in part because they crashed the unions,
Yeah.
in part because they allow corporations to come in and manipulate, and then you haven't got enough housing because they're lazy. The previous governments are just lazy.
Yeah.
They haven't built enough houses, and that means rents and mortgages are like 50% of your own wage. And then you've got the birthing crisis. So that's the previous generation again not having enough kids. And then you've got this fucking weird idea that everyone thinks that the country is full. It's like 6.8% of the land is urbanized, 6.8, and 1.5% of the land is residential. You could double the number of houses and it wouldn't make a difference in terms of space, but it would make a difference in terms of the mortgages because some prat, I think Thatcher, set this new system in play where homes weren't homes, they were assets, as you said.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem here. It's like you've got to have, it's like a massive set of cultural shifts you've got to set in play. You mentioned the 2-child cap. I think Reform is still going, yeah, we'll continue that. And you're like,
no, they said they'll cut it. They said they'll get rid of it.
What, the cap?
Yeah,
really?
Farage said they'll get rid of the 2-child cap. Yeah,
I believe it when I see it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I
I
don't believe anything the dude says either. But he knows how to play the game, and he's good at it. When you look at Labour now in government, right? When they were in opposition, they weren't great. They didn't do well in the election. Really, you've got Rachel Reeves, whose new advisor works for lobbies for Thames Water, right? Thames Water, the most bankrupt water company I think in the country, owe billions of pounds in debt, right? For a goddamn water company, literally all they do is water. Like they'll do some infrastructure stuff. Well, they should have been, right? She promoted Torsten Bell in the Treasury as well. Torsten Bell, the guy, when asked by Victoria Derbyshire, could you live off this amount of money? I think it was Universal Credit. He goes, no, because I have a mortgage. And you're like, fucking hell, this is your team. You think these are the goons who'll beat Nigel Farage? They don't know how to fight him. They don't know what areas to actually battle him on. They're cooked on the economy, which is the thing they ran on. They're, some of these people are conflicted, like Rayner buying an additional home. Like, I don't really care that much, to be honest with you. £800,000, outrageous, to be fair, especially for a holiday home in a city like Brighton, which has, I think, a housing crisis. And you'd rather it goes to at least a local person if they can afford it, because there are a lot of people who couldn't afford to live in London, moved to Brighton. You got all of those people in Brighton who could now not afford to live in Brighton because all the Londoners coming in, dispersing out, going into the small nearby towns and stuff. And so, how does that help? When there's a housing crisis, when you've got a deputy prime minister buying it, it doesn't make sense. So I don't think anyone would care if there wasn't a housing shortage. But when you look at the decisions these guys are making, right, none of this makes sense. And I know there's good stuff coming down the pipeline. There's the renters' rights bill, which is good. Workers' rights bill, which according to, I think it's Sharon Graham, head of Unite Union, said it's Swiss cheese or whatever. Is you can make the argument it's better than what we have now, and make the argument of incrementalism, but that's not going to cut it. Especially when you're fighting a guy like Farage, who will offer you everything. He will offer to deport. You can talk about how many people you've deported, right, in the hundreds or whatever. This guy's talking 600,000. This guy's saying, I'll put £10 billion and deport 600,000 people. He's talking about doing a deal with the goddamn Taliban. That's who this guy is. Like, this guy's crazy. Like, when I saw the stuff he was saying about Bulgarians and Romanians, right, I was like, there's no way this guy wins. When he did the the invasion of Europe stuff, when he had that banner behind him, I was like, people in this country were eating it up. They won that referendum off racism. So the idea that Reform wouldn't win or do well, like, is crazy to me. And the fact that Labour can't see the danger that's obviously coming down the track, especially when people tried the Conservatives, didn't work. They're going to try Labour, doesn't work. They're going to go for option 3, the Goldilocks thing. It's going to be just, people are going to think that this guy's it. He's the solution.
I just said to you, these are the key problems that I keep seeing and no one's dealing with. And Farage isn't going to deal with these problems either.
No.
But unless is he doing anything for the wage to go up? Is he doing anything for no. Is he doing anything for rent and mortgages to go down? No. And is he doing anything to sort out the birth crisis that we're in? No. So you go, those are the 3 key, and then you got the NHS, and the 3 things I've mentioned there are all part of cost of living crisis. Those are the 3 components, in my opinion, that cause the cost of living crisis. And then you've also got, you could add into that the fact that 500,000 a year for 3 years have left the country.
Yeah.
That's unsustainable. And Andrew Bailey, the head of the bank, is agreeing with me now. So I'm going, are they doing, because it's as you said, they said they were going to be big on the economy. Well, I mean, even those things there, like, they take time. Like the birth rate, that's going to be a decade to 2 decades to fix. Housing's going to, they needed to start it immediately. They should have started that immediately, and they haven't.
Yeah.
And then you're going, have they done anything for wages? They're talking about it. Like, wages, a simple thing you could have done was to say that wages got to go up in line with GDP. So the harder we work as a nation, the more we all benefit. That would have been a really simple thing that he could have linked to. No, hadn't done that. Because they've got it into their fucking heads that low wages is a good thing.
With the housing as well, right? You got BlackRock who's going to buy a significant chunk of the housing, and you got Starmer, a guy who shouted out BlackRock not long ago. He said, we're going to build a bigger country or a better country with BlackRock. You're like, bro, do you know who BlackRock are? They're one of the most scummy companies around.
Like
when you talk about their
Wayland-Yutani.
investments and stuff like that.
They make Wayland-Yutani look nice.
So honestly, I just with these guys, I don't think, the idea that they wouldn't be a one done, parliament, party is crazy to me when you've got probably the most talentless hacks that I've ever seen. You've got a prime minister who's completely he just zoned out, it feels like sometimes. You've got a chancellor who has no idea what she's doing. The fiscal rules, complete joke. Which one of the ministers could you say is competent in their role?
Haven't got any that I can talk about.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Maybe the fact that they sorted out the NHS strikes quite quickly. I'll give them that.
West Street.
I'm not saying West Street. I know, because I was careful there. I said that one thing. I didn't say West Streeting.
No, because I know West Streeting.
But I'm going to give him credit where it's due.
Did he manage
was good?
Did he manage to get an agreement this year with the junior doctors?
That's why, again, I was very specific, and I didn't mention him even though you asked for a person. I mentioned the fact. Well, you compare it to what the Conservatives did.
Yeah, that was ongoing.
They just dragged it out
wasn't it? Yeah,
because they were trying to make the NHS the boogeyman.
Yeah, they were honestly trying to, like, resident doctors. They were really trying to screw them, but I think they managed to get it sorted last year. This year, it's been another problem.
Because wages aren't keeping up with inflation. Inflation's up because of Brexit.
The other
problem is talk about.
The other problem is, like, these resident doctors are in demand because as soon as they graduate, they can go. They can go
Australia.
anywhere in the world.
Yeah. They can go to Australia. Australia,
They
like,
go
do
anywhere.
you want better weather and a higher living standard and less inflation? Come over to us.
And there's no loyalty either because they pay an enormous amount in student loans.
Yes.
Why would they be loyal to the country that put them through all of that? It doesn't make sense. Low wages and high student loans. They pay a lot in student loans. Honestly, it doesn't. A lot of the things in this country don't make sense. And Labour offered very little in terms of solutions. They don't know how to battle reform.
It makes a bit more sense when you're starting to look at the media just manufacturing fear of it. Like, we've just talked about those key core problems, and they're still talking about immigration as an issue. They talk about deporting 600,000 people. Yeah. You've got an issue with foreign direct investment, which is becoming an all-time low in British history since Brexit, which no one's talking about. Hate crimes gone up 240% since Brexit.
That's surprising. That bit doesn't surprise me at all.
But who the fuck's talking about it? That's a fucking issue. That's a fucking serious issue. If Labour had a brain about them, they'd be going, right, we're the anti-racism party. We're going to stamp out all racism across the country. And who the fuck's going to argue with that? Like, Reform would struggle arguing with that. Being like,
I don't know. They're going to argue the woke stuff, but
they'd argue that it's woke or something weird tangent. You go,
being anti-racist is woke. The thing that scares me is all of these kind of rights and stuff again. And I know these guys are going to pack it in for the autumn that's coming in because in the summers when they come out. But it is quite scary how they've managed to stop this hotel in Epping taking on more people, right? And more asylum seekers. And Reform have gone on a campaign of saying each council they're elected into, they're going to stop it from happening. So where I live now in Northampton, we've got Reform Council, and they're going to do the exact same thing. And it does limit Labour to where they can actually start, housing people safely. Well, and it creates a precedent of writing and, getting your way about it as well. You collapse into them.
So this then comes back to my book. That's why I wrote it. They've been manufacturing this fear and creating this fear belief within the population to gain votes. The stats came out this week showing where Labour voters have switched to. Lib Dems and Green and Reform and Conservatives. Conservatives are the smallest. Out of those that went to Reform, only 15% said they'd consider going back to Labour. Out of those that went to the Green and Lib Dems, it was about 50 to 60% said they would consider going back to Labour if they were less right-wing.
Yeah.
And yet they're focusing on the reform guys who they've got a small, and it's like, wow, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, the thing is, though, it's always been McSweeney's calculation that the left-wing voters will come back and they're guaranteed to vote for Labour because they want to keep reform out. They want to keep the Tories out. And, I've already seen it with some people saying, oh, you have to vote Labour, otherwise you're enabling the Reform Party already. We're potentially about 3-4 years out from an election, just under that, I think. And people already talking about being reform enablers is crazy to me. But that's what I mean. They don't know how to battle reform. And you got to factor in that Corbyn party as well, because they're polling okay for a party that has no goddamn name. So
Yeah.
it is scary to see that, because the voter base has fragmented completely. You've got a guy who was basically, really just assassinated by the media in Corbyn, and you have someone who is, not that big. I wouldn't say Zara Sultana is that much of a big name in the traditional media. She's in new media, and they're doing okay. The fact they're polling over 10% is crazy to me. They have no name, basically no infrastructure, and they're doing well in the polls. It doesn't make sense. In any other time, it wouldn't make sense. If you look at, that TIG party, whatever it was called, right? I think they capped out at 6%. So
It's almost like we're living in an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah, you cut to black, that'd be crazy.
Tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.
Your Black Mirror episode.
Oh, fuck my life. There's no one else here.
This time, you're stuck in a lift again.
All right.
This time, you've only got 2 options for company. Nigel Farage doing karaoke versions of sea shanties on repeat.
Oh, that's tempting.
Jacob Rees-Mogg giving a 6-hour lecture on Victorian table manners.
Okay.
Who are you picking and why?
Do I know the sea shanties that Farage is going to sing? Is he going to sing Leave Her, Johnny, Leave Her?
He's going to sing them all, the greatest hits.
All right, I'm in. Me and Nigel. Yeah, that was an easy one. Yeah, I love sea shanties. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, my favorite game. It's a pirate game.
Okay. Desert Island box set.
All right.
You're marooned, and you only get one complete series to watch forever.
All right.
In the thick of it, but every episode has been redubbed by Boris Johnson, so they're all talking like Boris Johnson.
Everyone is Boris.
Everyone's Boris Johnson's voice.
Oh.
Or Black Mirror, but every episode and cast member stars Piers Morgan as the main character.
Oh, man.
Which poison chalice are you taking?
I'll have to take the thick of it with Boris Johnson, because that show's actually funny. The source material from that show is funny.
I guess you could have the bloopers, which would be quite funny with Boris Johnson.
I can't imagine watching Black Mirror with Piers Morgan to me, because that feels dystopian enough. That's enough. That's your premise for an episode.
There are a couple of episodes where a lot of characters die.
Yeah, but the main characters?
And the main characters, yeah.
Is he the main character as in bad things will happen to him or good things? Because I watched that episode with some dude called Kenny, and he was the main character, and bad things happened to that man. Like that show. No, I'll take Piers Morgan. I'll take Black Mirror Piers Morgan. If there's bad stuff that can happen,
could
then
happen.
Fine. Yeah, we'll take Black Mirror Piers Morgan. We're not going to butcher thick of it with Peter Capaldi, my guy.